Ahoy there! It's January 2022. The last time we were able to visit our property in North Vancouver Island was in November. Since then we had floods, snowstorms, windstorms, more rain, frozen roads, and so we have not been able to go back in almost 2 months. But also in just a few days it will be the first anniversary of us getting our little piece of land, and so I thought it would be a nice way to kind of review year one or year zero, depends how you want to count it, and look at the most important things that we learned. So let's start with January. The most important thing we learned is that getting land is becoming really hard. We searched for a suitable piece of land that would be good size, be possibly on water, be in a reasonable distance from where we live for several years. So when we finally found something, we put an offer and we would learn the land is taken or there is an accepted offer. So we kept searching and searching, and finally on January 20th we put an offer on our 11.2 acre piece of land, and the offer got accepted, and thus started our adventure. The most important thing we learned in February is that if you want raw land, don't count on Canadian banks to get financing. The big five, TD and so on, they would tell us flat out that they don't finance such deals. When we found a mortgage broker, the conditions were such that we just simply didn't think it was ridiculous things like you pay $1,500 for somebody to go and inspect your raw land in order to get the mortgage. So we pulled out of that one, and eventually we pulled some savings that we had. We took some retirement savings, and we borrowed some money from family and friends, and so we finally got our deal closed. The most important thing we learned in March was that it's a bloody mess. The first visit to our land was on March 10th, and we brought some chainsaws and some measuring equipment because it was not really clear where the boundaries are, and I'm going to have one video specifically about how to survey the boundaries of your land. It's coming in the next few weeks. But really the most important thing is that now we finally had some time to go there and look in more details that the forest is really, really thick. What did we learn in April? We learned that there is an excavator guy working in the area, and we actually managed to get hold of him, and so the really the most important thing was, hey, we can have somebody to do the really hard work for us. And in more general terms, what we learned is that clearing land is really, really hard. In May, we had our first group visit when we were joined by our kids and some extended family. We had some nice fire there, and we had a little brigade to clear the land, so clear the smaller pieces. So it was our first camping experience, and yeah, it was just fantastic. June and July was really the time when we started kind of getting our bearings and getting things for the property. What we learned in June is to operate a backhoe and a loader on a tractor. And yes, on June 1st it was that we bought a tractor. It was actually much easier to buy than the land. It was just like, yeah, you guys want to buy our equipment? Sure, here is a 0% 7-year loan, no problem. So, go figure. In July, we learned that moving a tractor 500 kilometers away is not going to be A, easy, and B, cheap. So I finally figured out that what I would do is rent a U-Haul truck, a big cube van, put the tractor in it, and take it to the property. Well, loading the tractor into the U-Haul van was quite an adventure, and I will show some of that in another video. In August, we put the tractor in the U-Haul van along with a whole bunch of other things, boxes that we had with the shed kits in them, and traveled to our off-grid property, built the first shed, made sure that everything is securely stored, and kind of started working on our own. In September, we built a second shed near the water, where we would store the water kind of equipment, the boat and the camping stuff in the little shed by the water. And then in October, 4 weeks later, we made another visit, and the water was over 1 meter higher than it had been all summer. It flooded our little campsite that we cleared by the water, including the fire pit that we built there. So the most important thing we learned in that time was that the water can really change levels quite dramatically And fortunately our building pad is far enough from the lake and high enough so we wouldn't be worried about that getting flooded. But then in November the rain started.
Widespread flooding, fears critical infrastructure could fail, and the animals left behind. With highways washed out, entire cities...
It actually started exactly the day when we were packing our motorhome and going back to the city. The torrential rains that lasted like 2 days and flooded the lower mainland. It was all over the news. And that made us think, when we saw all the, all the flooding, and not just the flooding, but also things like landslides and what the saturated ground will do when there is no more water that it would absorb. So that made us think about our building plans. So we basically rethought everything, and I will have another video just talking about that. In short, I think what we learned in 2021 is that nature is really almighty and that we are very insignificant on this planet, and while we are trying to build our place off-grid and in the nature, in the forest, we really have to and want to respect the nature around us and the elements and everything that goes with it, because otherwise we would be just other bunch of city slickers invading the space that is not ours. So these are the most important things we learned in year 1 of our off-grid experience, and we hope to be able to apply this new knowledge to our year 2 that is just starting, and that has many projects to come on our off-grid land. Alright, that's it for today. We are off-grid bound. See you in the next video.